So, namaste and welcome to Satsang. So, as always, my urge, my aim, my motivation for holding Satsang is to try to simplify and make it faster and easier, and to make awakening perhaps more available or seem more available, which is the most important thing, than it has been before. And so, in that way, I thought it might be helpful to try to describe what it really is to be in that awakened state, what it really, the simplicity of that state, for want of a better phrase, because it isn't a state, condition, way of living, way of being, whatever we want to call it, because we can get very complex in our minds with it. We can get very, we may have read many, many books and listened to many, many satsangs, and there's great value in just, for the time being, forgetting all of that and just going back to the simplicity of what awakening, truth, enlightenment really is. When it happens in a human being, what does that look like? What's the hallmarks of it? It always helps to have a signpost to say that you are here, so that you know when you have arrived at this place, that you never left, in fact. And awakening really can be described as a conscious return to innocence. I really have had this phrase running around my head for the last couple of hours, this return to innocence, but consciously, by choice, so that we may not ever have to lose it again. And what does that mean? I want to really look at what that means. What does innocence mean? What is it that we had when we were very, very young, that, in physical form at least, that we seem to have lost as adults? Why do we suffer? Why do we believe our thoughts? Why do we feel separate to everything and everyone? And how do we best and easiest and fastest go about returning back to that innocence? Well, if you look at what we knew as children, perhaps very, very early on, we didn't really know anything about anything at all. We might have had a few concepts that we call our own body's name, the names of those around us and all of that. But we weren't holding on to anything tightly. We weren't holding on to any concept tightly at all. And each day then was a discovery of what that day was, an unfolding knowing as it happened of what that really is. What is it that is this moment? What is it made up of? And we might say, well, of course, I was more joyful, more happy, more peaceful as a child, perhaps very early on. Not all of us had fantastic childhoods, but very early on we had an opening, an innocence that we may have lost since then. And really it is because we didn't have any knowledge that we were holding on to. And really there are several phrases that come to mind. What you don't know won't hurt you, and ignorance is bliss. Ignorance in this context, not knowing anything, because and can we actually come to live from that place? Can we do that right now in this moment even? What is it to not know anything? What is it to be innocent, to be open, to experience life as it is in this moment right now? Our mind will have expectations and beliefs and projections and concepts that it loves to use with anything that we're experiencing, whether we're sat in a satsang like this or whether we're sat with one of our parents or a sibling or at work or something. But awakening is really when we've really become, when we've fallen in love with what it feels like to not know anything at all. There's an innocent, open state that our being naturally, just like when we stop holding a ball down under the water, it immediately shoots back up to the surface. When we stop trying so hard to know things, then quite naturally this open not knowingness re-emerges. That is your natural state. It's very natural, it's effortless to not know something. And that is a direct experience of reality, rather than experiencing my thoughts about reality, my thoughts about myself, my thoughts about this other being that's troubling me, or my thoughts about this emotion that's arising or something. In an innocent not knowing anything about what's happening in this moment, we're free to experience it as it directly is. Conversely, the more we know about something or someone, whatever we're experiencing right in front of us right now, the more separate we will feel from it, and the more negative emotion we will feel, and the more tension in the body, and the more lack we'll experience in our life in general. All of those are symptoms of knowing a lot of things about something or someone. And of course, the thing that we all know most about is awakening itself. We know that we're not there yet, or we know that we are there, or we know that we need to go further, or we're certain that we'll never get there, or that it's not going to happen for us, or something like that. And I could go on with a very long list of all the things we know about ourselves, and all the things we know about the formless reality, and all the things we know about the self, and whatever beings are giving us challenges in our particular individual life, or whatever things we seem to need or need to get rid of. But have we ever really experienced reality? Have we ever actually come to our life when we don't know anything about it? From our ego's perspective, from our mind's perspective, it makes sense to know a lot of things about a certain being that we experience very often that's been very difficult in our life. The ego says, this being is separate to me and outside of me, and the more I know about this being, then the more prepared I am for my next encounter with them, or for this thing that I need or want to get rid of. The more I know about it, the safer I am. But from the awakened state, there's a love that emerges that doesn't want to know anything about that being at all. It wants to instead experience them directly in this moment. And that has simply become habitual and then effortless and constant. Only what we know about something or someone will hurt us. And maybe we've only been suffering from this emotion or this other being or this thing that we need because we know things about it. As the infinite reality that you really are, any thought that you believe around anything at all, you will experience. And we can keep on doing this forever, or we can consciously embrace this return to the innocent state, but consciously this time so that we don't lose it again. It's fine to have ideas and concepts, but shouldn't they be optional whether you want to experience those concepts or experience reality? What is it like to meet and embrace your life, and perhaps more importantly, yourself and your awakening without any ideas about it? What is it like to come to a satsang like this without any need to get anything out of it, without any idea that this is going to be the one that saves you, or this is going to be the time where you really get it? So that you're here and you're just listening, you're just here and you're just enjoying, and you're not pinning your hopes on something. Maybe you can intuitively feel that just being that way is going to be more relaxing and more joyful anyway. And that when you don't need anything out of this moment, there's a natural contentment and peace that arises anyway, that's always here, but it is covered over by our experience of what we think is happening, or what we think about this being, or what we think about the money we need, or what we think about ourselves and our deservability and all of that. There is a wonderful simplicity to just living right as you are right now, noticing as we move through life where we tend to have lots of ideas about something or someone, noticing where we really tend to agree with those ideas, and can we just gently cultivate a willingness to, what is it like to experience this thing or this being or this problem or this work colleague or this absence of something without any ideas about it? Doesn't mean we have to completely eradicate all ideas. It just means we're gently cultivating this preference to experience something as it actually is. There is a wonderful intimacy with what is when you live from this way. Have we ever really experienced anything as it actually is? The more we have any particular ideas about something, the more separate we will feel to it. The very act of thinking about something makes it seem separate to us. And the more separate it seems to us, the more it makes sense somewhere inside to think about it. The more separate it is if we want it or need it, or we want or need a certain being, the more we feel that thinking about them is going to bring them closer. What if every thought we were agreeing with about someone was actually putting a barrier energetically between us? And what happens when we release those barriers, when we want to experience a being as they actually are? Is it really working to come to our relationships, our awakening, our life, guarded and protected with all of these ideas about it? Is that really working for us and giving us a happy, peaceful life? Do we really feel one with everything when we interact with life this way? Or do we feel extraordinarily separate to everything and everyone? Can you meet a being for the first time every time? Or do you keep them alive in your memory and then experience the very same thing next time you see them? Do you remember lots of things about them and project those expectations onto the next time you're in the presence of that being? And can you step back from that? So awakening itself is a very simple thing where I don't know anything about anything and I don't really want to. Ideas or concepts are fine, they can be used when necessary. But it's much more fun to meet life in this intimate embrace, this innocence. Like, I don't know anything about this being. And maybe more importantly, I don't know anything about myself. It's really quite hard not to love yourself completely when you don't know anything about yourself. And maybe that is love, actually. Maybe each idea I have about myself is diminishing my capacity to love myself, to allow love to flow as myself, and diminishing my peace, and emphasizing that I feel separate to everything. And what is it like when we stop doing that, even for a moment? Can you give yourself a coffee break right now where you're just here with me in this moment and you're not having any ideas that you're agreeing with? At least thoughts can be there. What is it like to be in the satsang and not need anything out of it? What is it like to just be here? And is it necessarily something you have to do to pick up all these ideas again? You're going to pick some of them up sometime, but as you do, maybe it's for the joy of setting them down again consciously, choosing to experience everything more and more from this place of total innocent intimacy with the one being that is everywhere all the time, that is yourself. There is no way to feel one with everything, to feel your wholeness, if we're trying to do it by thinking about things. There's nothing wrong with thoughts. They're useful. They're not going to work here, because I'm going to experience what I think about reality rather than reality itself, if I'm giving my agreement. All of my experiences will be this rerun. Same old, same old, same old. As I experience my thoughts over and over again about myself, or about reality, or about my awakening, or about something I need, or someone, or something I really need to get rid of, like an emotion or something. There is something so absolutely beautiful about just being with what is in this moment. It doesn't mean we don't have any ideas about how we would like it to unfold moving forward. But would those ideas be valid if we're not really here in this moment experiencing reality as it actually is? Can we really know where we're going in our human existence if we are starting from the reference point of what we think is happening, actually? So there is a forgetting and an undoing and an unlearning that has to occur, which can either be a long, drawn out, hard process if we're doing it from our separate sense of self. It will feel like I am deconstructing me, I'm losing me in this awakening. Or from the natural place, the natural state, the awakened way, is just a return to that innocence, that openness, that curiosity, that not knowingness. When I don't know anything, I won't feel separate to them. And all of this will just be different shapes that you are taking, shapes that we would have previously called negative or positive, wanted or unwanted, real or unreal. Even our mind The sum total of all our ideas is really just a shape that you're taking. And it's completely absent when you don't know anything. You're not holding anything together. It's effortless. It costs a lot of energy to know something. If you want to just feel it out now, what is it like to not know anything? Don't know this is a satsang. Don't know that you need to get something out of it. Don't know that there's any difference between me and you. Don't even know me and you. Just be with what is and see how you feel. And when ideas are suggested to you that you would normally just agree with, yes, but I can't stay like this. Yes, but this isn't going to last. I'm going to pick up some idea at some point. Well, probably. And then you can just open up again. You can just, okay, I can experience that thought, or I can experience reality. As soon as I begin to feel a diminishment in my peace and joy, and how relaxed my body feels, I've picked up some idea. That doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. It just means we've picked up an idea. Another opportunity to practice not knowing, releasing, forgetting, undoing, unlearning, unbecoming. This naturally happens anyway when we're sitting with an awakened being to some degree, and it happens in sleep, deep sleep. It happens in a deep meditation. Why can't it be like this in the waking state right now? And can your waking state be more a place that something that you experience where you are forgetting? If you know something, you'll feel separate to it. If you don't know anything about what's right in front of you, you'll feel one with it. What does that feel like, feeling one with it? It's peace, joy, security, safety, love, wisdom, compassion, patience. As a separate being, having lots of thoughts about people does protect you, seemingly. It seems to make sense to remember, I don't like this being, or I don't want to be with this person, I don't like that thing. But increasingly, you're being asked to not know, to forget. If you just forget right now in this moment that you're not yet awakened, just forget that and see how you feel. Then you're immediately here in this innocence, as this innocence. So I hope you've had a taste or an experience or a deeper recognition of what it is to be empty of agreeing with concepts. Empty of concepts doesn't mean totally absent, although it will do increasingly later on. But right now, just not agreeing with any in particular. not holding on so tightly to what we know. Okay, we will, I'll take questions now. I can see 2 hands up already. So if anyone else, I'll take up to 6 altogether. We'll see how many there is. So we'll start with Sheena whenever you're ready, if you'd like to ask or share whatever you want to share.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you?
Yeah. I'm struggling with things. You know, I have certain issues with relationships and things, and it's the same thing over and over again, and I get just massive like heart pain, and I just get very confused because I might in a moment be feeling safe about a certain person, and then something will happen, and then I then feel upset, and I try to explain how I feel, and I never get treated the way that I would like to be treated, and I've I have therapy, and I have like my therapist wants me to do have boundaries, and then I don't know how boundaries necessarily fit in properly with this, and I get confused, and then I feel like I've done something wrong, even though I've been really pleasant. I just end up with massive amounts of guilt that I've done something wrong, and then I punish myself for it, and I can't get over it. It just goes round and round in my head, and then with this process, I just feel like I can't do it, and I just constant. I don't know if there's just if it's could it be a belief that I can't change, and I can't change the reflection. I just don't believe I can do it. It doesn't, because it's happening over and over again, no matter what I do.
Yeah. The the belief that the idea that you really, really know that you're experiencing over and over is this feeling that you've just articulated it. You know, I can't change this. I just can't. There's a feeling of it just happens over and over again. There's nothing I can do about it. Can you see that you really know that there's a real agreement with that feeling inside?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as
Yeah.
much as it hurts to kind of get in touch with that inside, when we do find out what it is that we really know about a certain situation, or you know, all of us have ideas about certain areas of our life where we really hold on to them for a long time. And for me, you know, there were relationships, money, awakening itself, of course, and many others. But whatever you are certain of, you're going to keep experiencing. And in this particular situation, in the relationships that you're talking about, there is a real agreement with this idea, I can't change this. And the reason it's being agreed with so completely is because it keeps, the experience keeps happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our separate sense of self says, well, of course I'm going to keep hold of this feeling because it's true. It keeps happening. It keeps happening to me. So, of course, I feel this is a good idea to keep a hold of, this concept that I'm powerless here to make this any different.
Yeah.
But if we can begin to forget this idea by recognizing it's happening because of my powerful agreement with this idea, rather than what our ego or our mind says that, well, when this stops happening, then I'll drop this idea. I won't need it anymore then.
Yeah.
But as you so clearly said, so beautifully said, that is not happening, is it?
No.
No. So if you can see the attitude inside that's really being held on to, a real sense of being powerless to change something, and then develop a willingness to question if that is so, and then you can begin to move beyond this. You could go on for a very long time believing this idea and experiencing it, but it's becoming so painful because, well, it's been painful for a while, but because it's been agreed with so much. And the more that you wake up and see what you are as you are doing, what you really are, the more this sense of feeling disempowered and helpless to change anything is out of agreement with what you have seen yourself to be. That's why it hurts so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you today
Mm-hmm.
question this idea just a little bit more than you did yesterday?
The belief that I can't change it.
Yeah. Can you see that something inside really wants to agree with this? And that's okay. We don't need to judge that part of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's the part of us that works in separation and duality and feels really justified in holding on to this idea because it feels true. Ego says, but I keep experiencing it. Obviously, this idea is true.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never going to end that way. It's never going to come to a resolution that way.
So is the heart pain, the really bad heart pain, like it feels like my heart's just broken and it just
It's
over and over again?
a
Is that to do
disallowing.
with the belief?
It's a disallowing of the love that is trying to come to you in the form of a relationship, and the love that's trying to come through you as an embodiment of what you really are and have seen yourself to be. So when we pinch off that love by believing some idea, any idea, but whichever idea we're believing, we'll feel it in a particular chakra, and then as a disharmony in the energy flow, and then if it gets bad enough, it will be a strong emotional response and a strong physical response in the end too. If we really have been agreeing with this idea for a very long time.
Because I believe that I can't change anything. My life's just been such a mess for so long. I just feel like I can't change any.
So you can draw a line in the sand right now here with me and say, okay, I can really see this idea has kept reflecting back to me as all of these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how powerful I am as the infinite being, that I keep experiencing what I'm agreeing with. And I
Mm-hmm.
can see that trying to wait for my circumstances to change, my relationships in this case to change, and then let go of this idea isn't working. Can you see that?
So
Without judgment, yeah.
so when my therapist tells me to do certain things, should I not be doing them? I get very confused.
I think it's good to go with what the therapist is saying. It's helpful. But I'll say from my own experience, I could not set any boundaries until, not consistently at least, until I respected and loved myself. I'd allowed that love for myself to flow. Then it was natural and effortless to say to someone, actually, I'd rather you not treat me this way, or could you not say that, or, whatever it is that we call boundaries,
Mm.
or to recognize it's okay to spend some time on my own and then some time with someone else. You get the sense of it, yeah?
Yeah, so have I done something wrong then that I shouldn't have said anything?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Each one of us comes into this lifetime only knowing how to love ourselves conditionally and others.
Mm-hmm.
I love you as long as you stay with me. I love you as long as you make me happy. I love you as long as I feel safe with you. All of that. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not really working for you anymore, is it? As you have seen yourself to be something that is the source of love, that is love,
Mm-hmm.
then loving conditionally like this is no longer working for you.
No.
In fact, even this idea that you're powerless to change this is playing out even in enforcing these boundaries. You keep experiencing not being able to enforce the healthy boundaries that would reflect your own self-respect. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I just can't do this. I can't change it. Is the essence of feeling a limited, separate being.
Yeah. And did you have your boundaries always been this like before and or after? I know there is no before and after, but did the way you want to be treated, or has it always remained the same?
I had zero boundaries. I let everyone walk all over me. I let people treat me terribly, sometimes those closest to me. And that has, I'm happy to say that has turned around. Much to my surprise, sometimes I'll find myself saying something that is coming out of my own self-love and self-respect. And it also happens to be exactly what the other being needs to hear in that moment. Look, please don't talk to me like that, or treat me this way, or look, I just want to spend some time on my own, or something that I just would not have been able to do before. And I tried to do that so long as a separate being, but because of this feeling that I can't, feeling of powerlessness, I had to keep experiencing failure over and over again, not being able to do it.
And when there's it's to do with another person and the energy is the same energy,
Yeah.
is it?
That you're both beings, let's say if we're talking about a romantic relationship, both beings in that relationship are experiencing this I can't feeling, this real agreement that I'm powerless. You might be experiencing it as I can't enforce the boundaries that I want to enforce, can't change this. The other being will be experiencing I can't allow myself to love this person as I want to love them, or treat them the way I want to treat them. Same belief experienced two different ways, but the same frequency. So as you cultivate a willingness to question this belief, even while it's still reflecting, you're not waiting for the reflection to change, because that will never happen first, never.
No. Yeah.
And if you see that clear enough, then you really get kind of, I got a little bit angry in the end, not angry with myself or anyone, just angry at, I don't want to keep experiencing this over and over.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
So
So
a
you
question.
turn that anger into determination.
Okay.
Yeah. You get a little bit cheesed off. I was going to say something else, and cheesed off with it, and you light a fire inside to question. Each time you feel this pain, this hurt, emotionally or whatever, you add that as fuel to your fire to question.
So I say, is it true I can't change this?
Yeah, and whatever, you're just challenging the assumption. Whichever question feels right, you're challenging the assumption you're powerless here to change anything. Because until we really question it, we have to keep experiencing.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, good question.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. I'm sure it's helped many people. Lovely. Ron, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Hey, Helen, how are you?
How are you doing?
And so, this consciously moving back to innocence. Yeah, this is a great, great one for me, because I'm always Encyclopedia Brown, looking things up, wanting to know, wanting to know the answer to the question before I ask a question. um, Definitely, researching the background of people before I meet with them, to be better, better prepared, or better situated. Definitely expecting or angling toward a particular outcome, particularly in business. Um, and we have the memories, we have the thoughts, this way of being, and usually the most challenging ones are the ones that are closest to us, that we've had the most experience with. So is it just simply asking the question? I mean, how do I consciously, what would you suggest as some tools as to, when you're in a situation where, to kind of wipe the slate clean,
Yeah.
to get to the cleaner blackboard, shall I say?
Mhm. If you can remember in that moment, if you start to feel your body feeling worse and your emotions feeling worse, then if you can remember in that moment that you must know something, you must really be convinced of something here. Or even if it's not an outright suffering, it's just a noisy head full of stuff, then you can remind yourself that you're experiencing what you think is going to happen. You're experiencing what you think about what is happening. And just being able to remember that is going to allow you to sort of get some distance, and there's going to be a natural willingness developed to want to experience what is actually happening. It's not something you have to cultivate, because you love truth anyway. You're in a satsang like this. You love truth. And the highest expression, there's nothing wrong with experiencing our thoughts, but after a while it just gets very same. So if we can remember that we're either experiencing our thoughts about this moment or actually experiencing this moment. Sometimes that's hard to do when we're right in the middle of it. So we can, beforehand, if you're going into a meeting with a being that's particularly has been aggressive in the past in the way they argue with you or something, then you can sit beforehand and just say, well, I really would like to experience this being as they actually are. I'd like to create this open space, hold this open space to see what this meeting can actually become. And just that kind of wiping the slate clean, as you said, can make for a very different manifestation in that moment.
Okay. Any tools for if you're in the thick of it?
If you're in the thick of it and you're caught up in experiencing it, don't blame yourself for that. We all have places where we, as we were just saying before the previous question, where we really, really agree with certain things that we know. But just to, sometimes it's not even helpful to try to remember in the thick of it. Later you can look back and go, what happened there? What actually went wrong there? What happened in my, what seemed to cause me to come out this contentment into this real sense of being disturbed? And it's sort of going back and distilling down what ideas we really knew in that moment. And we're better equipped for the next moment that happens then. That sometimes you can't do anything about it right when it's playing, and that's okay. If we come out of that moment blaming ourselves, I should have done better with that, I've missed an opportunity, then we're going to keep experiencing that, going around and around. We're all always doing the best we can in any moment with this, aren't we?
Yeah, because I don't particularly suffer or get upset, something. But I'm sensing it's more of a, have I really truly experienced the moment?
Yeah.
And my for whatever reason, my thought, this system that I'm kind of experiencing isn't particularly unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely don't. I definitely sense that it's not a true experiencing of the moment. Yeah.
It could be fuller or deeper or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just that recognition is allowing a desire to arise to really see it, to really experience it, and to recognize that there's no end to that. I'm still experiencing this moment deeper. Every day it gets deeper, but that is love emerging, isn't it? The urge to really experience what is, rather than even subtle ideas. And the amount of peace, love, and joy we're feeling in any moment is kind of giving us an indication of how much we're experiencing ideas and how much we're experiencing reality. Quite often, where we're not really suffering, we're just kind of blah or meh, that's where those ideas persist for a long time. The ones that are really painful, we've worked through those already. Most of them, we've already dropped those because they hurt too much. Just subtle ideas sometimes.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Good question. Okay, Lindy, whenever you're ready.
Hello. Yes, just going back to a couple of callers ago. Where does the setting boundaries, deciding not to be treated in certain ways, how does that dovetail in with surrender, free will, all that sort of thing? Yeah, can you just say something about that?
So just give me a little bit more detail about what you mean by surrender and free will, just to give me something to...
Well, I've heard it a lot in certainly in non-dual. I'm fairly new to listening to you, but certainly in the sort of non-dual side of things, very much that there has to, at some point there just has to be a surrender of the me, the imaginary me, and that we actually can't do these things for ourselves because there's no me there to actually do them.
Okay, I'm with you now. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So we can take any action from and as a separate imaginary me, as you said, or we can take an action, do an action from and as the self, the one being. And what determines our motivation for doing an action, in this case setting a boundary with someone, really is how much the separate sense of self is made up of these things that we know. So as we are willing to question what we know, that is surrender, that is letting go of experiencing our life as a separate being bit by bit, and moving into this deeper place where, so yeah, I can set a boundary with another being out of an urge to protect myself because I don't feel safe, or I can set a boundary with this being out of healthy self-respect for myself and this other being, knowing that they probably feel bad treating me badly. On some level, they feel bad, maybe not consciously, but it's adding to their guilt and self-blame and all of that as well when they do it. So if we can see that the same action may occur but from a different motivation, so asking, what is my motivation for doing this? Why am I setting this boundary? Why am I wanting to? Then it could be that it arises spontaneously out of surrender into what we really are. That there's a self-respect and a ability to love ourselves that comes out of that. Does that help? Or
Yes, I think so. I think I'll just need to think about it and listen to it again, because I'd sort of got to the point where, at least intellectually, I'd sort of come reconciled as much as one can, I guess, intellectually to, well, actually, there actually isn't any free will, that the imagined me can't really do anything. It just thinks it can do things.
there isn't any free will for that imagined me, but you always have free will to choose where to respond to life from in any moment. That's kind of the ultimate free will. I can respond as a separate being, or I can respond as myself with a capital S.
Is that a conscious choice?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's been an unconscious choice, hasn't it, when we didn't know what we really are, when we hadn't really ever heard about satsang or something. it's an unconscious choice out of habit to respond as a separate being because that's all we knew. But as we wake up more, the process of actually living as this is a conscious choice moment by moment too. And that for me is surrender. You know, where do I want to do I want to keep sustaining my sense of being someone, or do I want to see if there's a deeper way to experience this moment, this being, this relationship, this, you know, whatever it is that's going on.
Okay.
And it's something we can choose, and that's our free will right there. I can choose this, and I can choose it again and again until it becomes a habit. You know, and that it's just a habit how we respond to life.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Good, lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take the questions that are remaining, and then we'll call a halt. So, Rowena, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you for these satsangs. Find them so helpful. Yeah, I've missed most of this morning, but I've listened to the last couple of answers that you've given, and there seems to be lots of links to what I'm going to ask you.
There's always a theme, isn't there, that develops?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how it always resonates, regardless. Yeah, I've noticed that there definitely have been some kind of subtle breakthroughs that I've had over the last few months and over the last few weeks. If you can call them those, it's kind of, it's on that line between what I'm doing and what's happening, and finding that sometimes during meditation, but also throughout the day, as I'm kind of more naturally asking self-inquiry questions, or more naturally just kind of shifting into that a different perception, that I can feel that shift, and it's very subtle in some ways, and I guess this question is quite difficult to place, and it's also, I'm aware that it's probably a question that I wouldn't have to ask in a few weeks or a few months or something like that, but it's something like that there seem to be different tools that I use to get to this more open space, which isn't having to do anything. And it's strange because sometimes different tools work, sometimes they don't, and another tool will work, even though they must be the same tool, really, if they're taking me to the same place. So that's kind of the first part of the question. And the second part is that then, you know, there seems to be an amount of time in my sitting meditations where something relaxes and something comes through. And I guess that there's a part of me that's saying, well, why does it have to be a certain amount of time until I get there? You know, is there like a belief that's there that, you know, I have to do it with this amount of time before things start moving more naturally?
Yeah, it's the first part is, it is all the same tool, isn't it? Whether we're calling it contemplation or meditation or self-inquiry, it's really just openness. All of those methods are openness, aren't they? A willingness to see reality. That's the common thread underneath all of those things. And that's why there are several tools, because sometimes it's easier with certain ones than others, and eventually it doesn't matter which one, because it's just a more spontaneous dropping, letting go of whatever it is that we're experiencing, and a relaxation that greater space opens up or becomes available to experience. It's always there, but you know what I mean. Which leads nicely into the second part, actually, that what is it that, you know, sometimes if I sit to meditate, 30 seconds has hardly gone by and I'm in this deeply beautiful state, you know, and then other times I'm sat there for half an hour and I'm just feeling restless and irritated and nothing's happening. And then right as I have to get up and go, suddenly this nice feeling comes over. And it's really exactly what we were just talking about, that whenever I stop trying to change this moment, it is when I will experience this moment in its fullness. And of course, in meditation, we get in our own way because we might have experienced that many times and really enjoy it. So we're sitting down to, right, I'm going to enjoy this, this is going to, and then it doesn't happen. So we're really trying to manipulate this moment then to get back to that effortless state, paradoxically.
Yeah.
And I remember some of the deepest meditations I ever had, most blissful, like where your head's rolling around and you lose all track of time, where I just felt so frustrated and I just gave up trying. I'm just going to sit here for 20 minutes then. So that's what this is, this meditation. Next thing I know, the alarm's going off, and my head's like really back and I'm just beautiful bliss because I just gave up trying to push against this thing that's happening, this great restlessness or whatever it is that comes up. And that's the openness right there, isn't it? Okay, what is what is, and I'm not going to fight it anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's I just find it so funny, or there's a part of my mind that's really kind of like, well, and so when it realizes what's just happened on some level, then it's like, okay, well, why can't I make that happen earlier? Or even once it's happened, it's just that kind of oh, that's what I needed to do, which I know is a trick of the mind as well. As like, oh, okay, there's this thing that I needed to do.
It's good to kind of consciously talk about it like this. What actually happened there where I suddenly seemed to just let go? What actually was that? What's the mechanism of that? Which is kind of like surrender that we were just talking about. If I just accept, okay, I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes feeling irritated, frustrated, and restless, and there might not be any peace at all this 20-minute period or however long I'm sitting for. If I really just kind of let go of pushing against that, then peace is going to come quite profoundly. That's really what's occurred, isn't it, in that moment?
Yeah.
We have this crazy idea that we all have for some weird reason that all that restlessness has to go before the peace can come, that it's one or the other. And really what we experience in those moments when we accidentally surrender is just forgetting that okay, I'm just gonna be with what this is here. And that's accidentally the natural state, isn't it, of awakening, intimacy with what is. And restlessness can be a beautiful tool back into peace if we can sort of embrace it that way, or whatever it is that we're experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of my favorite tools, actually. That's something that Sri Atmananda, he always says you can use literally anything in your experience to bring you back, and that's one of my favorites. But sometimes it doesn't work for me, weirdly, because I'm trying to use it as a tool too much. But yeah, that's really, really helpful. Yeah, thanks very much.
Kind of a question of what is this moment? What is this moment? I would sit with a question, what is this moment? Or what is this meditation period? What is this? Just as a kind of way to that's why I'm so passionate about questions, because they're a kind of conscious form of surrendering for me. You can't be holding on tightly to anything if you really want to kind of see. You can't be pushing against the moment if you're asking what this moment actually is. It's like, I really want to see what this moment is, rather than sort of, okay, I don't want this. It's the polar opposites.
Yeah, rather than trying to get something out of it, just being curious about it. Yeah, no, I like that. Thank you. That's a really nice question.
Cool. Yeah, wonderful. Good.
Thanks, Helen.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too.
Shaista, whenever you're ready.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
How are you? Yes, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Good. All these questions and listening to it has just answered everything, and it seems like they're all my questions. And
it's wonderful how it works like that, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Yes, it is. So I just have one or two. There are questions and stuff. So my every day is now, it's quite peaceful, and there are no names, but I'm just relaxed in myself, and there is natural surrender and natural peace and whatever it is. I guess my question is that So I know there are not two things, but
I think you've muted again there. Just there we go. Sorry, say that again.
sorry, the formlessness part of ourself. You know, because when I read, because I have read Ramana and Nasargadatta Maharaj like extensively, and they talk a lot about this, which you have in your Hamilton Gita, which is it's just so beautiful and profound and all that. So now the mind is asking that, that. So how is that relevant, and what's the relevant? Like, is it really important? Because that's not what I'm feeling, or that's not my experience is. On the other hand, there's acceptance, there's surrender, there's allowance. So which one is like, I know they're perhaps the same thing on, final level or not level, but
Yeah, I know what you
just,
mean. Yeah.
yeah.
And they are the same thing as you're saying. It's that there's a beautiful, quiet openness that is profound. It's blissful. It's joyful. It's peaceful. There's no suffering there. There's nothing going wrong, which has been described as the awakened state or something like that. But really, what the awakened state is what we are experiencing it as in this moment. How much are we really being with this moment, with ourselves, with reality? Same thing. And we do that incrementally by letting go of these, surrendering, letting go of these ideas we have, as we were talking about earlier. And as we do that more and more, our normal everyday state lines up more and more, begins to feel more and more like that beautiful place we've read about and heard about, and all of that. That each day I'm becoming a little more peaceful, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more. What starts as a very quiet contentment becomes a very deep joy in the end. That there's nothing really wrong with me or anyone, actually. It's kind of growing very, very quietly in the background at first, then it gathers momentum and builds into something. And there's no end point to that. It's always deepening, which is the wonderful thing about it. However much we can enjoy this moment is however much we can enjoy it right now. And that as we just relax into that, it's going to deepen into so much more. It's just to watch what ideas we have. We can read something written by someone who's very awake or spoken by someone who's very much there and conclude that we're not where they are because our experience doesn't match theirs yet. And then this is what we really know, and we're going to keep experiencing not being where they are. If you come to this moment without any ideas there's any difference between me and you, you'll experience the exact same thing as me. Without any ideas at all, you'll experience the same thing. Does that help? Or?
Yeah, that really helped. Yeah, I sort of knew that. Sorry, but I think I just needed reassurance perhaps from you. And one last thing, a small thing. It's like I have not really sat in meditation like have everybody and you've been talking. So I don't know, that's not my personality. Maybe for longer I can't sit and all. I'm very contemplative. So this questioning is really helping me, and listening to your guided meditation, and also that happens when I open my eyes, and also I don't really sit, and I don't know how. So yeah, so that's not very important. That's a different rule.
It's more about the setting aside some time each day to notice what's real. Whether we do that through a contemplative question or through meditation or self-inquiry, it really doesn't matter in the end. It's just about setting a habit, starting a habit to recognize. And you already have that, or else you wouldn't find yourself asking these kind of questions. And really, they're all the same. Contemplation, meditation, self-inquiry are all just three different names for the same openness that we're developing, the same surrendered state, or whatever, for want of a better word than state, but you get the idea.
Yeah, no, but thank you very much. All your words, they just come alive, like I feel them. So it's whether I'm ready in life or I don't know whether I met you now, we have similar sort of, it's just so beautiful.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank
So
you
glad
very
it's
much.
helping. And just enjoy where you're at in this moment. You know, 10 years from
Yeah.
now, you'll be experiencing a lot more peace, love, and joy than you are now. And right now, you're experiencing a lot more peace and love and joy than you were 10 years ago. And if you
Yeah,
can just relax
definitely.
into that, you know, there's no finish line like mine says, is there? We're just,
I think that's the most beautiful thing you have given me, that there's no finish line. 'Cause I had this idea in my head that there's a finish line, there's a crossover, you know,
when I
and that
feel
will
like
be
Ramana did, then I'm there. And not till then, right? Yeah. Yeah. I've been there,
absolutely.
done that one. Yeah. Yeah.
I know, and this is so beautiful. The openness actually is so beautiful. This is
It is the
letting me,
awakened
you know,
state.
be.
It is the awakened state,
Yes.
that openness right there. Yeah. Wonderful.
You know, thank you so much. You know, I'm
Very,
so
very good.
grateful. Thanks.
Oh, lovely. Good to
Yeah.
talk to you. Thanks. Okay, Sophie, whenever you're ready. Last but not least, we lost you the other day in the middle.
Yeah. Hi. I hope I can make it through this time without getting lost, because it's happened twice now. So
Sometimes it helps to, if the signal is a little dodgy, just to turn your video off while you're asking. Maybe we'll see how it goes. You know, it helps with the
yeah,
connection. Anyway, we'll see.
rather than some karmic resistance coming up or something. I don't
Well,
know.
probably both. One in a physical way, one in a non-physical way. Yeah.
So it's more of a sharing and a kind of reflection on what's happening, I think. So that I've really you can say it's funny, but I've seen that whole movie thing, like everything is a thought, a belief in the mind, and that has immediately dropped into a different kind of coming out of the mind. So that everything is just a thought state in the mind, what I'm believing, and so without going into any of that, if that's not playing, then there's no
No problem.
there's no problem.
There's nothing wrong. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. Yeah, there's no problem. I'm not thinking. So how it's being experienced is that there is a quietness, more depth, and more silence there, but there's also this thing with the body that the mind, because the mind freaks out quite a lot around all this, because it thinks it's going to go insane, that it's going to that because you can't use it in the same way, it's not the dominant way. So I'm like constantly sort of saying, no, you can still think, it's okay, you can still
I still need you to write my shopping list and all that stuff, don't worry, you still got a job. Yeah. Yeah,
you're going to be comparing things, but just not comparing them as my whole mode of operating.
Yeah, exactly. It's an optional add-on functional feature that you can use as and when you want to, rather than it being something that as the default setting.
That's dominant, because there's no innocence there, none whatsoever.
Nope.
So there's that, and then there's this kind of sense of releasing structurally in the body, that the body's kind of like physically kind of, which I've had a lot of anyway through my awakening, this kind of structural releasing sense of like the contraction having to so I can see that the current belief is still the mind holding on to the body as a body, and I was kind of wondering whether that was always going to be there, in the sense that there is going to be a sense of self here, and that the body I'll have that sense of self, just because in the same way that I'll still have a mind, that there will be the sense of self. And so rather than, it's like you were saying, I'm not having to go at war with that, and maybe it will more naturally open, but there's if you ask what am I thinking now, what am I believing, there's still that, and it's really the primary identities with the body. So there's still the sense that I have to hold on to this form, otherwise I really am going to go mad. You know, there really isn't any.
There's no reference point then, is
no
there?
reference
You know,
point. It's like, you know, what you were just saying about not knowing anything, not knowing anything. And like I just said earlier, sorry, I'll just, you know, you said yesterday about who is this being, you know, who is this being, really question that. And I just did that with my cat because that seemed the most kind of innocent being to do it with. And so yes, when there's nothing in the mind, then there's no relationship to that being other than what I'm thinking about the cat. So there's thoughts like, yeah, that's my cat, but that's just a thought. Yes, it's its name. Yes, it's that personality, but that's not who that's not the truth of that being.
You can do that with your body as well. What really is this body?
Yeah.
And with that, with a deep or cultivating a deeper wish to see what it really is. It really a body, actually? And as we begin to ask that kind of question, what actually is this? Because if I think it's a body, then I'll think it came to me and I'm living in it, and then I'll be different when it goes, or I need it for my reference, or all kinds of subtle ideas. But when I really ask that question, I'm going to come to see it's nothing other than silence or stillness, looking like a human body. And then it's totally okay to let go of that reference point. It happens spontaneously. I'll have a sense of being someone somewhere, but it'll just be a sense, and it's fine, and it's a fluid thing that works quite well without needing to hold on to something, you know, as a reference. So do what you did with your cat, with your own body. What is this thing that I've been given? Is it really what I think it is? Because if it's not really a body, actually, then do you have a reference point anyway? And is there any letting go to happen? You know, are you just free already and it's fine, and there isn't really a problem in that way? It's just a concept. Yeah. Body is just a concept. This is a body, and then everything that comes along with body is kind of piled on top of that concept, isn't it? Can I let go of this or not, this body or not? And well, if it's not really a body, all I'm letting go is the concept of it.
It's just that in meditation, it's the sensation, which is, so that sensation, there's a belief behind the sensation.
Yeah. So
the sensation feels very still, like there's a contraction around the sensation of it. But that's just a sensation, isn't it? And the thought of the sensation is, I am that, you know, that there's an identity there. So yeah, I'll do that.
Have a play around with it, and it would be fun to just kind of forget what you know about the body in that way. Yeah.
And just about going mad, is it just sort of saying no, that's just a belief again, just being really kind of gently?
Actually, yeah, if you just you know, the separate sense of self has its fears that I'll go without my usual reference points, I'll go insane. You know, sometimes I remember worrying about that myself. But actually, if you see what's been happening in reality is every time you've let go of holding on to an idea tightly, you've become more functional, more clear, more open to actually respond to the moment in an appropriate way. So you just keep reminding the mind of that. Look, it's all good. You know, there's no absolutes, like mine says, you know, I'm either insane or sane, you know. Actually, we've been quite insane, haven't we? Believing all these ideas about ourselves.
In the mind is insanity. But, you know, when you were talking about not knowing, there's, to that not knowing in comparison to the mind's conceptualizing, it looks like
it's still there. It's still your filing cabinet of ideas you can go to, your resource, your library, if you need it. It's still going to be there in that way. It's just further and further away from you, because less and less is it your method of choice for experiencing what is. Thinking about it is less and less preferred to directly experiencing it. So nothing happens to it. It's just you don't really have a clue where it is anymore, because you're not constantly running to the mind. What do you think about this? What do you think about that being? What do you think about myself? And all of it's just a different way of functioning in that. Yeah. It just ends up being, I just leave my mind right where it is, and not making it wrong, but I'm also not just only going to experience life through that. And that's all that's happening, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's just using that and also seeing, like, the moment I have a wanting thought, that's another lack of innocence immediately there. And that's been like the hardest thing to kind of, that's been the purging the most, that wanting thoughts.
There's nothing wrong with them. It's just, what's the most intelligent way to get that thing that I want? And it's okay to recognize the fastest way is just to let it show up by letting go of this, holding on to this thought so tightly. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm separate from it then. I'm separate, so I'm in struggle. But the moment and then if you kind of merge with it more, it doesn't really matter if you get it or not in that way.
And then it comes, yeah.
It might or it might. Okay, sorry to go on. Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay, we'll squeeze Jay in very, very quickly if you can. If you want to ask a question or share, Jay, very quickly. Oh, okay.
Okay, I just quickly put my hand up then because of this talk about the body and we're not the body.
Yeah.
I have occasionally this a visual of hanging off a rock, and beneath is this like huge abyss, and I'm going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, well, I'm not the body, so I shouldn't really be terrified. But yet one is.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, when I stop being terrified, then I'll truly embrace I'm not the body. So how does that work?
The fear is based on this idea that it's all or nothing. I'm either letting go of that cliff and dropping, plummeting, or I'm holding on tightly. But can you see that kind of absoluteness that mind wants to give it, that the fear is based on? At some point, I'm going to have to let go and see what happens, type of thing, that kind of feeling. And if you can see that you let go quite a while ago, and you might not have realized there's a ladder actually down, and you're just stepping down gradually. There's no kind of absoluteness like the mind wants to make it. Because if there's an absolute, at some point I've got to make a decision to let go, then I'm going to really fear doing that and resist it. And boy, did I do that for quite some time. But I'm letting go of these ideas more and more every day. I'm believing them less and less every day. There's no kind of arbitrary point, is there, where you couldn't really say to me with any idea you've let go of, okay, at this time on this day, I didn't believe it at all. It just somehow was less and less agreed with, wasn't it? Whatever idea we've let go of. Until
but
one
if
day.
you were hanging off that rock with the cliff beneath you, and at some point you couldn't hang on any longer, wouldn't you be terrified? And then wouldn't you think you shouldn't be terrified because you're not the body, you're eternal?
Yeah. Why are you so sure then that you're the one hanging?
I guess
because if you are, then it makes sense to be terrified. But in reality, you're the one hanging. You are the cliff, you are the space in between, you are the ground in the bottom, you are the wind that will rush past your face, all of that.
That's it.
You are already the place that you're going to fall to, and the one that seems like it's going to fall. It's a different thing then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Thank
from
you.
only taking that one position. I'm the one that's got to let go, because that is terrifying,
Yes.
Does that help?
Right. Yes.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Good. I remember that myself. It's not so much fun. Lovely. Okay. So we'll leave it there for today. Thanks everyone for your wonderfully intelligent questions. Namaste.